To speak or to be silent? That is yet a question, or so a proverb says. Also, speech is silver, but silence is golden. Or one can say, I have often regretted my speaking, but rarely my silence. I have to admit, and I believe we all were in these situations, where many a time one should have said nothing and stayed silent, or already said too much. But sometimes it also was the other way round. One should have said something, but instead stayed silent. One thing is sure. Most people speak too much and barely listen enough. That reminds me of a saying I want to share with you. A human being needs 2 years in order to learn how to speak, and 50 years in order to learn how to be silent. There is a story that tells us from a man who loved to speak and spoke always way too much. One day, that proved to be his undoing. In a village in faraway Africa, there once lived a man named Mbala-Mbala. Mbala-Mbala spoke too much. He spoke from early morning until late at night. They said that Mbala-Mbala even spoke in his sleep. When one was walking by his hut late at night, one could hear his voice, even though he lived all by himself. And when he went onto the streets, the people of the village went the other way, men or women, young or old. Only on Fridays, people were left in peace for a while, because that is when they went to the mosque in order to listen to the imam. Only one person didn't go, Mbala-Mbala, because he wasn't able to sit still and listen. So he preferred to leave the village every Friday and to walk through the stone desert near the village. There he spoke to the scarce clouds floating by. He spoke to the wind, or to the lizards who sunbathed on the rocks without moving. One day, one Friday, when Mbala-Mbala was wandering about in the stone desert again, he saw somewhere between the rocks a special round object, not dissimilar from a ball. Curious as he was, he approached it and saw that it was a skull, a human skull. Mbala-Mbala was happy that he had found somebody to talk to. He took up the skull, put it on a rock, and started to speak to it. "Oh, what happened, old friend Skull?" he asked curiously and knocked at it with his cane. "Were you once a woman or a man?" I think you rather were a man, because the women here, they rarely walk through the Stones Desert, you know, and so yeah, let's keep this noted. You were a man, that much is sure. Were you a trader? Or a traveler? Perhaps an adventurer? Or were you just a beggar? Each time when Mbala-Mbala spoke to the skull, he knocked at it with his cane. Knock, knock. Oh, all of this doesn't seem to be correct, because the dead receive an honorable burial in our parts. So I think I know what you really were. A bandit. And again he struck at the skull using his cane. Knock, knock. It's true, isn't it? You were a thief, perhaps even a murderer. Knock, knock. But I would love to know why you lost your head. This was when Mbala-Mbala suddenly heard a voice. My babbling and gabbling! I should have kept silent once in a while. Oh, I talked too much. Mbala-Mbala startled, sprang to his feet, looked left and right, and asked, Who spoke there? It's me, answered the skull. You asked me why I lost my head, and I told you it was my babbling and gabbling. It was me talking too much. Yes, because of my loose mouth, I lost my head. Mbala-Mbala like a scalded cat, sprang up fully and ran towards his village. He ran straight to the hut of the patriarch of the tribe, who was also called king of the village, and shouted out loud, my king, a skull spoke to me." The patriarch just had eaten a fat and juicy savannah's hen and laid down for his sacred afternoon nap. His guardians had to keep the agitated Mbala-Mbala back, but he continued to shout out loud, "I have to see the king! A skull has spoken to me!" The king's head, aroused by all that hue, appeared dozily in the window, and with a big yawn he asked, "Oh, Mbala-Mbala, what happened? What do you want from me?" "My king, in the desert there lies a skull, and it spoke to me." To that the king answered, "My boy, I think you have been too long out there in the hot sun. Skulls never speak." "I swear by Allah and his prophet that the skull has spoken to me." "Right. And what is it that you wish now?" the king asked. "You don't want me to go out into the desert and have a look, do you?" "That is exactly what I beg from you, and because you are our king, I'm sure that the skull has an important message for you." "Is it so?" The king sighed heavily. "Well, I will go with you, but if you have lied, woe to you. In that case, you will pay with your life." A short time later, the king, his guards, and Mbala-Mbala were standing in front of the skull. Mbala-Mbala spoke. "Skull, our king is here. Speak to him." Silence. "Skull, earlier today you spoke to me. Now I came back with our king. Please speak. Say something." Silence. One could feel the temper rise inside the king. Mbala-Mbala kneeled down beside the skull and begged, trembling and stammering, "Please, skull, speak finally up to our king. Please speak, skull." Silence. Oh, one can guess what happened next. Yes, the king was very angry and ordered for Mbala-Mbala to be decapitated right on the spot. Afterwards, he and his guards returned to their village, leaving both Skull and Mbala-Mbala back in the desert. As soon as the king and his guards were out of earshot, the skull turned towards the head and spoke. "Didn't I warn you? Didn't I tell you that silence is important?" "Yes," cried Mbala-Mbala's head, "but why didn't you speak in the presence of the king?" "Oh, I could have spoken. Indeed, I could have. But I was tired of being alone, and now I have someone to talk to right beside me." The story doesn't tell us who spoke more, the skull or Mbala-Mbala. But the story clearly tells us that speech is silver and silence is golden. It is said that to this day, on every Friday, when the south wind blows towards the village and one listens well, the voice of Mbala-Mbala can be heard. Such Mbalas exist in every tribe, in every village, in every town. And hence my story has reached its end. I will be silent now and just say to you, Mbala-Mbala. This is an excerpt from the book The Storyteller of Algiers. Stories from the Maghreb and elsewhere. Told and published by erzaehler.aceval in 2018. English audio version by erzaehler. Published with authorization and explicit encouragement of the author. Illustrations and title image by Bendix Bauer. Currently, the book is only available in German. If you are an editor or interested in publishing an English version of the book, please contact the author's son, erzaehler, under hakim@aceval.net. To order an autographed and dedicated copy of the book, please contact the author directly You will find his email address under www.aceval.net or via his Facebook page.